Hello guys and welcome back to the Submission Addiction. In today's video I will be doing something that finally has something related to my channel name. This will be a ranking of 10 submissions in the UFC. Some of them are iconic, some of them are mid, to be honest. Some of them have had a huge impact on the sport, and in today's video I will be ranking these submissions. I will be ranking them based off on, who did you submit? That's a huge part in this video. Who did you submit? How did you submit them? That means which submission did you use and how dominant was it? And things like that. And let's just start off with the first ever twister submission in UFC history. And where do I put this? I think I'm gonna put it in B tier. The Korean Zombie getting the first ever twister submission in the UFC. Pretty impressive. There are some submissions who are gonna be ranked higher just because, as I said, it has something to do with who did you submit also. And this was in the early days or earlier days in the UFC. In my opinion, people have a lot better submission defense nowadays. It's harder to submit people in the modern era. And I do think that just because it was the first ever twister submission, it is a tad overrated, just in my opinion. Not to say that it is a bad submission. There are submissions on this list that I will be ranking lower, but it's a good submission. Let's get that out of the way. It's a great submission. It's just not S tier. It's not the best submission we have ever seen. To that regard, I think it's a bit overrated. Let's have one of the submissions that I will be ranking lower. So this might actually surprise a few of you. But Khabib Nurmagomedov submission against Justin Gaethje is also overrated. And the thing you need to understand is that Justin Gaethje basically has white belt jiu-jitsu submission defense. He can't defend submissions for shit, to save his dear life. Justin Gaethje has terrible ground game. I haven't included Khabib's submission win against Dustin Poirier, but that would be higher just because Dustin Poirier, as we have seen, has better submission defense against guys like Islam Makhachev. So he would be ranked higher if that was the case. I don't have that submission in this video, but Justin Gaethje, terrible submission defense, terrible ground game. Submitting him, it was an impressive submission. He did it dominantly, but it is overrated, and for that reason I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Great submission, but against who? As we get on to, I think we should do one of these like S tier submissions. I have 2 S tier submissions on this list, to be fair. And I'm, speaking of Islam Makhachev, his submission win against Charles Oliveira was S tier. Maybe the most S tier submission in the UFC history. As we all know, Charles Oliveira has an incredible Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game and has the most submissions in UFC history. And I get that he was rocked. He was rocked. Islam Makhachev rocked him. But still, to go down with Charles. Charles is used to getting knocked down by guys like Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier. And they don't follow up. They don't follow him to the ground because they know the jiu-jitsu game that he has, and they know that he is quite dangerous down there. And so Islam Makhachev to just jump straight onto him and getting the choke is super impressive. Charles Oliveira maybe didn't expect that, but to submit the guy in his prime, who a lot of people would regard as the guy with the best jiu-jitsu in UFC history, that is absolutely S tier. That is a God tier submission. Alright, I think we should do one of these. Let's do an A tier submission. Gene Silva getting the ninja choke against Bryce Mitchell. This was a fantastic submission. You know, Gene Silva, he subs Bryce Mitchell, and Bryce Mitchell, we all thought that Bryce would be the guy to kind of dominate the fight if that fight went to the ground. But that was really not the case. Gene Silva was, 5 steps ahead of him in the striking and 3 steps ahead of him in the grappling. He showed that ninja choke actually multiple times during the fight, and Bryce Mitchell, he didn't get the memo. He got sub anyways. This was super impressive, and one of the, I want to say, maybe even the best submission of this year. I was really impressed with Gene Silva in this one, and it goes to show that he really is champion potential, in my opinion. He has that ground game, also a submission game apparently. Let's do Khabib versus Conor McGregor. I'm gonna put it in B tier. And the reason that this is higher than Justin Gaethje is not because McGregor is, a defensive BJJ expert. Suddenly, this is because that McGregor is harder to submit than Justin Gaethje. He has better ground game than Justin Gaethje. To go out there and neck crank him, really, there was a tough submission, you could see. But, the impact that it had on the sport, this is probably the most famous submission of all time, amongst people who don't watch MMA, who just know who McGregor and Khabib is. This was a huge submission, better than the Justin Gaethje one, in my opinion. Let's see. John Jones getting a standing guillotine against Lyoto Machida. John Jones was dominating this fight, and the way that this fight ended was absolutely insane. John Jones is standing there, and when he is done with Lyoto, he just throws him to the ground, and he's just sleeping. He's unconscious. This was a really impressive submission. You don't see a lot of submissions standing. I'm thinking about which one to go for next. I think I will go with the Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen. Again, this is C tier, man. I'm sorry. I really am sorry, but this is C tier. He was getting dominated the whole fight. To get that, and it's not, to some extent, this is actually a fluke submission. It's a fluke win. Chael Sonnen was dominating that whole fight. And I'm sorry to say, but the submission, it was great. It had a huge impact on Anderson Silva's career, on Chael Sonnen's career, denying him becoming champ. But it's one of these, like, it's the same with Khabib and McGregor, that the submission are more known that it is good, in my opinion. Let's get on to an A tier submission. I think I will rate this. Charles Oliveira subbing Dustin Poirier. Charles was getting dominated by Dustin Poirier in the first round. if I remember correctly, and then comes back in the... I can't remember if it's the second or third round that he gets the rear naked choke against Dustin Poirier. That was absolutely heartbreaking for me to see, because I'm a diehard Dustin Poirier fan. But it is what it is. He comes back as he does Charles, and getting the submission against someone like Dustin Poirier. And you can see like the lightweights here are, you know, Justin Gaethje, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, and that is not a coincidence. I haven't even thought about this until now. But Justin Gaethje has the worst submission defense game out of these four. Then it is McGregor, Poirier, and then Charles. So it's primarily based on who are you submitting and in how dominant fashion. I get that this wasn't that dominant because Charles was getting dominated in the first round, getting dropped. But you know, the comeback was absolutely amazing. And you can say what about the comeback for Silva versus Chael Sonnen? Yeah, but that was more of like a fluke, and I can't really describe it. It felt more like a fluke, to be honest. Whereas Charles was actually working his way back into the fight. Right, I think I might have done a mistake here. I think we have 2 S-tier submissions left. We have Demetrius Johnson. You know it already. The flying armbar against Ray Borg in the 5th round with like a minute to go. S-tier submission. I get that it was against, you know, a kind of mid-tier fighter like Ray Borg. But to get a flying... To throw him with a suplex and in the air getting the armbar is athleticism in that we have never seen before. That was absolutely beautiful. Go watch it. You have already watched it 1,000 times if you follow the UFC just a bit. One of the most legendary submissions of all time. And rightfully so. That was absolutely beautiful. And another S-tier submission. Khamzat Chimaev getting the rear naked choke or neck crank, I don't know what to call it, against Robert Whittaker. I actually expected Robert Whittaker to win this fight. I thought that he would survive the first round, maybe survive the first 2 rounds, and then just school Khamzat from there. But that wasn't the case. Khamzat took down one of the most well-rounded fighters in the UFC, maybe even the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC middleweight division of all time. Took him down with ease. Robert Whittaker was about to get back up. Khamzat takes him down again dominantly and gets the rear naked choke, neck crank, call it whatever you want. He breaks Robert Whittaker's jaw while doing this, which just speaks volumes to how strong Khamzat Chimaev is and how good of a grappler he is. He is the Mike Tyson of grappling, and that's end of debate, end of discussion. Yeah, guys, that was it for me today. Comment down below what other submissions or knockouts or fights you would like me to rank, because I love doing this. I think this was really fun, you know. I am called the submission addiction for a reason. I love submissions. I think that a lot of time they are more entertaining than knockouts, which is probably an unpopular opinion, but I have a black belt in jiu-jitsu myself, and I love submissions. So yeah, guys, remember to subscribe to the Submission Addiction, like the video, and comment what other stuff you would like to see me do. Thank you. Bye.